Oh, you're not getting your fan out already. You've just got here. You've got to have a fan out.
Look.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. So we've got you today in the shed. Talks in the shed.
Yes.
We've had a recent good trip on Trentview.
Good. Couldn't really ask for much better, to be honest. It's definitely one to remember for sure.
Oh yeah. So what happened? What did you have in the end?
I ended up breaking my PB and 2 different fish. One, I broke it marginally by 4 ounces, and the second time it was well over a pound. So I had a £35.14 and a £36.15.
So before the trip, when was your last PB?
Well, 13 years ago was the last time I broke it. I've come close, you know. I've come like 34s and that kind of stuff, but never actually quite beat the 35 barrier.
You must have a little story behind your original PB.
Well, my original PB was the Baden All Common, which obviously I tell this to a few different people because to me it was a special moment, and it always will be for as long as I live, because it wasn't just any old common, it was the Baden All Common, which at the time was one of the biggest fish in Staffordshire. You know, obviously it made 49 before it passed or disappeared, or what, not entirely sure what happened, but she went missing nevertheless. But yeah, I mean, I had it at 16 years old. I mean, you can imagine having a 35 pounder at 16 years old.
Oh, dreams are made of that.
Well, yeah, it was almost surreal, because I don't think you actually register how big the fish is until you've sat for a little bit afterwards.
Yeah, the realisation.
Yeah, because obviously being so young, it's like you're just fishing. I was fishing with my granddad. You know, we'd done a few sessions on baden and things like this, and we'd caught 20 pounders and things like this. But obviously, I'd seen that fish on numerous occasions, on the website and all this kind of stuff. And you know, it's a colossal carp. You just never ever envisage it actually being in your net.
It was a proper sought after.
Yeah,
time,
yeah. It was a good one, definitely. But this was like back in the day before all buckets and all that kind of thing even were a part of carp fishing. You know what I mean?
I don't think your granddad was going to give you a bucket, was he?
My granddad didn't even believe I'd got a fish on at the time. That was the mad thing about the whole story. He just didn't even believe me, because obviously baden, anyone that's ever fished it knows that it's quite a weedy venue.
Yeah.
So like many times, I'd been stuck in weed or whatever on the retrieve, and I used to just blag him, "Oh, granddad, I've got a fish on." Just a big ball of weed. So obviously I've told him I've got this fish on, and he was like, "Nah, you haven't." He didn't believe a word I said. But anyway, just to satisfy me, if you like, he comes over trudging with his net like this, and then he's seen it boil on the surface, and he's like, "Okay, fair enough."
Weed doesn't tend to boil.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, it was mad, because like my granddad, thinking about it now, he wasn't possibly like the best netsman to have on the job at the time. You know, just a little old man, you know, waving this net around and that. But yeah, fair play to him. He got it in the net, first go. And yeah, and ever since then, I've never ever broke it since.
Well, you have now.
Well, I have now, yeah.
So,
I have now.
Let's get on to Trentview.
Trentview.
You had a hell of a session.
Yeah,
So,
I did.
Walk us through what happened when we first got there.
So, hold on. So before we go into when we first got there, there's a little backstory which
yeah,
I have to include this.
Forgot about that. Yeah, crack on.
So, me and the good lady and the kids, we had a few nights in Blackpool, and we'd never really been a big believer in these fortune tellers or anything like this. But we thought, yeah, do you know what? We'll go and speak to one, see what they've got to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, this woman that did it, she was saying things that like nobody could possibly know, so there was kind of some truth in it. And one of the things that she said was, September is my lucky month. Right. So I mean, this could have been a range of anything. Straight away, being a carp angler, September, I'm boots on Trentview, I'm having a PB. So off the basis of this, I had spare clothing, I had towels, I had spare boxes.
Proper enthusiastic.
I was ready for it, mate. I was ready. It was going to happen. I was adamant it was going to happen. And yeah, obviously, little did I know what it was going to be old.
was a help. Best thing was, it was your birthday social.
Yes.
It wasn't just any old trip. The boys got together
Yeah.
for your birthday.
So, for the birthday socials, what we do, because obviously we have a set group of lads, when it comes to birthdays, what we like to do is we'll all book a trip, and yeah, so we'll get to the venue. The person whose birthday social it is the first choice of swim, and then the other lads do a draw amongst themselves for what sort of swims that they go in. So obviously that's how we started at Trentview. We did a little draw,
as we always do.
Yeah, we managed getting hot swims really, which I was quite happy about.
Considering how many people were on the lake.
Yeah,
100% we got lucky.
We did well. We definitely did well with the swims. We managed to get us all in a row. I think there was one guy, wasn't there, in between us all.
Yeah, one swim. Yeah.
But other than that, we were all together, which always a bonus for these kind of scenarios. So yeah, straight out the bat, I was like, right, I'm having peg 10. Peg 10 looked a good peg to me. It's what I probably would have fancied. But not only that, it was the central swim, which is good for a social, because obviously we've got a barbecue all lined up, and all the lads would have been either side of me.
Stop there a minute. The reason you like the central swim is because you like to have the social peg, because you're too lazy to go to other people's pegs and then have to run for your own alarm.
Well, you know,
Come on, let's have some truth, Sam, that is the truth.
I'm on the larger side of life, mate, so like running to my rods is never my favourite thing to do. Like, I always like to be as close to my rods as I can, which, to be honest, as the story progresses, that something did happen during the trip, which cemented why I like being close to my rods. But we will get into that in a bit, so obviously if you can just give me a reminder of obviously where we're going with that, then yeah.
Not a problem. So you got into your swim. What was your baiting approach? What did you go in with straight off the bat?
Right, so obviously it's a weedy venue, right? The weed was there. I'm not scared of weed. Like, I kind of like fishing in weed, because to me, it's almost like, if you're fishing a venue where, let's just say linear, for example, Brasenose 1 or anywhere like that, you've got a flat bottom, right? So a flat bottom to me is you are solely relying on bait and hook bait to capture the fish, aren't you? Whereas weedy venues, to me, it's almost like somebody's presented a dinner table and all you've got to do is give them the dinner. That's how I look at weedy venues, because the spots are there, aren't they?
Yeah.
So obviously, you start off, as you do, finding spots. You know, now everyone says about Trentview, and I'm not dismissing this whatsoever, because I know it works from previous trips to Trentview, marginal work. Fishing close in is always the trick.
Speaking of that, that's exactly how I had my fish.
Yes.
Might have been the far margin,
but it's still the margin nevertheless. And in the grand scheme of things, thinking about it, the spot that I was fishing, I suppose, was kind of marginal, but from the far side.
Yeah, exactly the same.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't far, was it? It wasn't far at all. So yeah, I've got my swim sorted. I'm now needing to find a spot. I'm just going to turn this off because I don't want it causing any. I've got to find a spot. I've got to find somewhere to present my bait. Luckily for me, I just thought, right, I've got a far margin ahead of me, and it comes round into like a bend, and it almost looks like an intersection point.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, everybody fishes to that far margin from pegs 1 to 10. They all fish that side. 100%. It's standard, isn't it? You got a nice set of reeds. It's perfect. So obviously, the first thing I've done is shot straight over, and on the first cast, bang! I was like, wow. Well, that didn't take too long. So I've got that in my mind now, and I'm thinking, right, so I need just to have a little feel about. I want to troll up and down the margin. I just want to feel what's about, closer, further, and that kind of thing. And it turned out, the way the swim was, in front of me, it was, you wouldn't believe it, but it was like 4 foot to 40, 50 yards out. And then it dropped off a little bit. And where I was actually fishing was 13 foot of water. Now, it was over the back of a big weed bed that runs straight through the middle, which I soon come to learn that weed bed was possibly going to be a bit of a nightmare. But nevertheless, it was still doable. So I found a spot. This I say a spot, it was an area. So I can go from, it was like 21 wraps up to about 26. And in some cases I could go 30, you know, round that corner where I was trying. So I chose the 23 wraps. That was my spot. And luckily for me, this particular spot was, I had a big pylon in the background. So that was my horizon marker all sorted. It's almost like it was too good to be true, because this horizon marker stands out in any time of night. You can see it any point of the day, any point of night. So
I remember the horizon marker.
Yeah.
For the fact of, it had like Nottingham City in the background. So
Yeah.
at night, that was lit up everywhere.
Yeah. You could see it from a mile away.
Yeah.
It was mega. Now, I've never been an angler for fishing 3 rods on the spot. I've never done that. It's never really worked that well for me. But I've always had 2 on an area or a spot. I say an area or a spot, obviously. This is more of an area because there was a decent area of obviously clear ground. So I opted for the 2 rods. Thought, right, 2 rods out, and then I'd find another spot somewhere else to present one bait on its own. And again, luckily, at the same range, where I was probably 40 yards between them, I found another spot. Now, the horizon marker for this spot was like the tallest tree that you can possibly see. So again, this made it very easy for me at night time to get my baits back out exactly how they were. So yeah, I'm presented, everything's all good. I've gone with my classic helicopter kind of approach, because even though it was clean, I wasn't convinced it was 100% clean. I still feel like there might have been a little bit of low-lying weed there, just because how the bottom was. And I think sometimes this happens a lot in people's fishing. I feel like even though your lead is telling you solid, it's not always solid, is it?
If you're just using a normal lead, you will not know if that little silkweed is on the bottom. You've got to have the gripper edge of the 4-point stick.
Which, do you know what? I do actually have this lead, but I didn't feel it was necessary.
No.
I didn't. And the reason I felt like this is because of how the margin was, and I'd witnessed everybody fishing to that far side, it was so obvious to me that this is just an obvious spot where fish come in and feed.
Yeah.
So even if it had got a little bit of low-lying weed, it was no issue whatsoever. So obviously I'm on the helicopters for a few hours. Now, my mates always call me a tinker, and that's because I'm always sitting there thinking how this should be happening. Why is it not happening?
I've experienced this many a time. You will not leave your rod in the water.
No, not unless it's a lake where, you know, like Asprey.
Oh, well, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Asprey's different. It's a bait and weight. As long as you get your drop, you put your bait out and you just, you know, you just kind of forget about it, like, and just hope for the best sort of thing. But yeah, I just feel like the amount of fish that are in there, things should be happening. And like they were showing, weren't they? What made us go in them swims originally? Because we did have a few choices. We didn't just like fall into these swims by default.
Yeah, there was seven on the tree line bank.
Yeah, and I think there was a few down the bottom end as well, wasn't there? Because
there was a few about.
The classic thing to do on there, from obviously what you read, is follow the wind.
Yeah.
Now, the wind was not going into our bank for a little bit, was it? It was kind of, it was more your way, wasn't it?
When we first set up, it was coming down into my corner.
Yeah. So it kind of broke the rule book, if you like. It they weren't on the wind as such, they were actually in slack water. So I'd got fish over me, I'd got me brigs and me bait out. Now, obviously, what I'd done to start with, obviously, at Trentview, you can only use boilie and pallet predominantly. I'm not saying other people don't use other things, but I stick to the rules best I can. So I've made a mix-up. I've put CC Moore Pacific tuna, because I'm 100% CC Moore. Now, you'll see why I'm getting this in a bit later on, but I'm 100% CC Moore, loose feed-wise, definitely. And so I put some Pacific tuna boilies in. I'd crumbed the load up so it was like dust. I'd got some of the Coppens pallets and just oiled them all up. A bit of liquid in there, you know. Just made a nice mix, what I'd use anywhere else. And I was fishing, I can't even remember what baits I started off with, to be honest. I know I definitely went with a yellow, because I like to fish yellow over anything, no matter what. And I think I went with a match the hatch. Yes, I did. I had a Pacific tuna match the hatch pop up on to start with. So these fish are showing, and nothing's happening. And it's like, you know, you just feel you should have had a bite.
Yeah.
And it was annoying me, and especially the fact that Lloyd had one so fast.
Yeah,
now, what Lloyd had done to my right-hand side is he'd gone round to the far margin and spooned his bait in, and he'd fished a white pop-up over the top of this bait, and he had a fish like within minutes. So now I'm like, oh, what's going on here? I can't get my head around what's going on. And then I start thinking, right, is it me rigs? Am I not presented? Is my bait not right? So, and I just, all these different things are playing on my mind. So, from that conclusion, my next tinker was, I thought a little bit more logical about what I was doing. And
unlike you.
Yeah, unlike me, I normally like to go completely against the grain, but at this time, I didn't. I just thought, right, I'm going to go solid bag. There's no way solid bags are not going to be presented on that spot.
It's something you see all over the Trentview page, though, is
solid bags.
Solid bag,
Yeah.
on the solid bag, caught on the solid bag.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It really does make sense. So that's what made me. So I went solid bag. So now I've got mute baits all sorted out. I've got some micro pallets. I'll show you a bit later on about obviously what exactly I was doing, but I've got micro pallets and slightly bigger pallets in there. So now it was down to, do I stick to my conventional mix that I'd made up for the trip, or do I go down the route of, and I sat there and I thought to myself, they feed the fish. They feed the fish, and when they feed them pallets. But they don't put oils in, they don't put liquids in, they don't put boilies in, and they don't put anything else in. It's literally pallets straight out the bag.
Yeah.
So why am I messing around? Why am I messing around and I'm going against the grain? It makes no sense, does it? So then, luckily for me, I've got 25 kilos of pallets with me, with no oils, just straight out the bag. So then I opted 3 kilos in between every time I recast, 3 kilos of pallet out. That's what I was going with. So yeah, I put about 3 kilos of pallets out and I fished solid bag over the top, and I had a fish straight away. Only a mid-double, something like this, didn't I? Oh no, sorry, no, rewind. I actually had a fish on and lost it. Was my first.
Snapped off.
Yes.
In that big weed bed that you said was going to be a problem. Yeah,
yes, so the weed that I was nervous about. Now, this was unbelievable to me because on one set of spools, I'd got braided mainline, which you're not allowed to use at Trentview, so I couldn't use that. So on the other set that I ended up using, I had 20-pound extra set, and this fish had snapped 20-pound extra set clean. So now I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? If it's snapping me at 20-pound line, is this what the trip's going to entail? So I whacked another bag back out, tried not to lose faith or anything like this, and it started slicking immediately, and then it was off. And then I had a mid-double, so I thought, right, okay, champion. And I put another rig on that spot. Now, I feel like fish, and I'd said that to you many times throughout the trip, didn't I?
Yeah.
I don't feel like they're coming over like 2 or 3 rods on the spot. I feel like just one presentation over a patch of bait is what's going to do it. So now the spot that I'd got that hadn't actually produced a fish just yet, I kept with 2 rods on that spot. And I now opted for the spot that had just done me the bite to fish 1 rod. And then it was like, what's the right way? Like consistent action as such, but not consistent like 3 fish an hour or whatever. So yeah, so I'm fishing now. I've got this 1 rod on this spot, and that just seemed, I felt so much better about it. Everything just felt right from that moment. Anyway, it went a bit quiet for me then. So now I'm thinking, do I put a bit more bait in? Have they cleaned me out? Because there's still fish showing. I was even debating going longer and fishing tighter to the margin. But no, I opted to stick to my spot anyway.
Never seen your head go blank. You be speechless.
I'm just trying. Obviously, it's trying to remember the events of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there was so much. The way I'm talking about it, you'd think we'd caught 100 fish.
It seemed really hectic.
It did. The whole session. The whole session was hectic, but it was like there was so much going on. Not necessarily fish catching. You know, I mean, I was having steady flurries of action, but it was like I'd land a fish, then I'd lose a fish. I lost four or five, I can't remember, over the duration that I was there, which is annoying. You don't like losing fish, do you? You always remember the ones you lost more than the ones you've actually landed. So I had nothing now for the rest of the day. Then comes the night time. You know, I'm coming into the night time, and I think, right, I'm going to rebait, can get everything all perfect, all smackers, and get back out there ready for night time, because I feel like night time / early morning is going to be the one. So I get the rigs back out, everything's all, you know, perfect, and it come to about 12:30 at night, and now the left-hand rod's in action. Now, the left-hand rod was the one that was on a separate spot. And it turned out that this spot was the one that just seemed to do the night bites. It never did me a bite in the day. It was always at night, which is mad because it was more open water. So I'm wondering if in the daytime they're up and down the margin.
Yeah, maybe.
And they slightly move out a little bit at night.
I was fishing tight to the far margin. Never had a single fish in the night.
Yeah.
All mine were daytime bites. Every single one of them.
So I'm wondering if that's how it works up there. But this spot, obviously my left-hand rod's burst into action, and I'm out the bevy, and I'm playing this fish, powerful fish, you know. But it's always hard to tell exactly how big said fish is when you're fishing in weed, because obviously every single time, mate, even on a retrieve, we were picking weed up, weren't we?
Oh yeah.
Because obviously your line's in the weed, innit? You can't keep it out the weed. So obviously I'm playing this fish, unknown what was even on the end of it. I knew it was a good fish, but I mean, I feel like you say that all the time, don't you? So I'm battling this fish, and I can feel the line just like pulling through the weed, and I'm like, oh, not again! I can't be having this again. At this point, I'd got the lads with me. You know, one lad was ready with the net. It was all kosher, like ready for this fish to come in. So I get it through the weed. It's all clear. It's all good. The lead's gone. Everything's all perfect. You know, it was all in place, and the fish has gone over the cord. When I seen it come up, I knew it was a good fish. 100%, mate. You couldn't miss it. It was an absolute slab of a carp. Like it was a proper chunk. Now, I don't really know Trentview all that well. I definitely don't know any of the fish in there. But like that day, my mate Lloyd, he'd gone to the toilet. Now in the toilets in there, they have pictures of the fish, like the named ones up on the wall. And he come out the toilet, he was like, bro, you want to see this fish called the Sergeant? It's mega, mega fish. And guess what I had in the net? A fish called the Sergeant. So I was unaware that this was the Sergeant, because I hadn't even seen this fish.
It was the guy in the bag between us, wasn't it?
Yes.
That knew which fish it was.
Yeah. He said, that's the Sergeant. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't know. I was a bit miffed by it, to be honest. I was like, okay. It's hard to listen to these people sometimes, isn't it? Because obviously,
you don't know, do you?
When you've got big scaly fish, it can take one scale for it to be a different fish.
Oh, 100%.
You know, so didn't listen to that too much. But having said that, the first thing I did before we even getting this fish out the net is I went to Lloyd. I was like, mate, I've got the Sergeant in the net. So he comes over and lo and behold, it was the Sergeant. Now, I didn't know it was going to be a PB until we weighed it. And yeah, it went round to 35 pounds 14 ounces. So, time for the bucket. And now, bear in mind, I haven't had a bucket ever. Never had a bucket, never experienced it. And if you're ever going to have one, it's always going to be at 1:30 in the morning. So, fish in the net, and the fish is in my hands. I'm having photos, mega photos, proper breeze block of a carp with a big droopy tail, and yeah, it was mega, mate, and it was nailed. The rig was, that fish could have been on my line forever, unless it snapped me, it was never coming off. And that's it. Bang, 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 bang. Buckets hitting me left, right, and centre. And do you know what? It was a moment that I will never, ever forget, because it's like I'd waited so long for that. I
was going to say, with your previous PB at Baden, you never got a bucket.
No.
And you've never, ever had a bucket.
I've given many buckets, but I've never actually received one up until that point. So, like, luckily for me, I was already prepared for it. You know, all of a sudden, I'm like, the fortune teller has just got me. She's got me back. Everything had fell into place. Now, it was an incredible fish. It was an incredible capture with incredible people. Everything was all perfect, but I just wished it was a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
To take a bucket over 4 ounces, mate.
It's not the best, is it?
Nah, it's hard, man. It's hard. But nevertheless, I'd done a PB and it was an incredible fish. So now at this point, my PB mirror is £35 and my PB common is £35. Not a bad record to have, really, is it?
No.
In the UK, you know, obviously I know there's fish like double the size of that now, but still. So yeah, all's good. I'd got the fish, got the rods back out on the market. Everything was all perfect, you know. I got the rig done up pretty quick. Obviously, I didn't rush to get the rig back out. I was too busy reveling in me, you know, my own little bubble.
You didn't get it back out until you'd been for a shower.
I had to go for a shower, mate.
Yeah, it was very silty water.
All as I can say is anybody that's ever fished Trentview and anybody that's ever been fortunate enough to have a bucket at Trentview, it is possibly the stinkiest, horriblest, like...
No, whoa, don't diss the water.
It's not the water, no, but it's the silt.
It was Craig's fault, because when he was getting that bucket, because it was shallow, I was watching it go across the bottom as he was getting all the silt in the
bucket. But did he do that every time? It was right. So okay, having said that, it was the kind of margin that, like, you know, when you tread on a reed, when you're in reeds and your waders, it stinks, mate.
Yeah,
it stinks, and it was that kind of margin, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was reeds all up and down it. Yeah,
it was horrible, mate. The smell was horrendous. It stained me clothes and everything. It was, you know, but nevertheless, it was worth it. Luckily for me, do you know what? I got all the towel, I got the clothes, I got everything. The only thing I hadn't got was shower gel.
No. Luckily for you, though.
Mr. Adam Bridgewood gave me some said shower gel, and I was able to have a lovely shower and come back in fresh clothing and happy as Larry. Gets back to my swim. Right, time to get the rod back out. Now, to me, fishing 2 rods on that spot, the other one should have gone. If the fish had turned up and they were there in numbers, the other one should have gone.
Yeah.
I don't believe that fish has come in on its own. I don't believe it's coming on its own. So this is what kind of brought me to the whole theory of you just need to fish 1 rod on a spot.
Yeah.
So the short end of it is I ended up only fishing 2 rods on 2 separate spots.
The thing on there, though, is it's very fresh.
Yeah, very massively, fresh. Massively. And you can't conceal your line, because you can't use backlead. If you use backlead, you're crazy, because the weed is just a no-go. So you've kind of just got to deal with it. So my conclusion to all this was just fish 1 rod on each spot. So, which is fine by me, because I don't like fishing 3 rods anyway, like in that situation on pressured water. If I'm honest, the 3rd rod was just like, I'm putting it out because I've got it and I can. So I removed that rod out of the situation and I got this rod back out, fresh hook bait, fresh solid bag. Oh no, sorry, it wasn't a solid bag actually on this spot. I never actually put a solid bag on this spot up until the 2nd night. So I do apologise, it wasn't a solid bag. That was just a normal rig that done that. So I get this rod back out, and yeah, it was what? So I had this fish at like 1.5, and my next bite was about 3.3. Now, this now brings me back to the point that I was making earlier in regards to I like to be on my rods. I don't like being away from my rods, because the take was that aggressive. Now, I've got solar P1 butt rests, right? Anyone that's got them knows they hold your rod. Mate, that rod's going nowhere. Now, when I got to the rod, the reel was up against the alarm. So it's gone at some power. I've picked the rod up, and straight away, it's stripping line. I was not stopping this fish whatsoever. Now, peg 10 and peg 11, very close, really, in the grand scheme of things. So everything, I don't know what it was, every single fish I hooked, off it went. It just, fucked off to the left. Beep. It did. It just bolted off to the left. And I don't know how it never picked Craig's lines up next to me, but somehow it just never did. Anyway, this fish is ripping line. I just cannot stop it from where it's going. And I'm holding on. Now, I'm on my own. No one's awake. Everyone's fast asleep. I'm not the most nimble person in the world. So where's my wellies? Try and get me wellies. It was a struggle. Luckily, I've got neoprene wellies, so they were quite easy to get on when I got them. I didn't want to lose tension on this fish, like messing around to get my head torch and everything. But it all went too well. Everything went so well. I was in the water, in my wellies, with the net, ready for this fish. Got my head torch on. I'm battling it. I'm finally getting a bit of line on it, but it's heavy, man. It's real heavy. Like, you can just feel like that. It's different when you hook a big fish. It's different. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You just know, don't you? Obviously, after all that initial ripping of line. Anyway, I'm starting to get line on it, and it's now at about 40 yards, something like this. And it's gone off for a second surge, and it's bolted left. I'm like, oh, it's annoying me at this point, because I'm like, I can't keep going over Craig's lines without actually picking him up. But it did. I don't know. Obviously, I'm dumping leads, so that made life a lot easier. Then my rigs don't fail. They always dump leads. You know what I mean? No matter what. So off it's gone, and it was going for a little bit, and I managed to get a bit more line on it, and I've now got it like under the rod tip, if you like, just a little bit out from under the rod tip at probably 15 yards, maybe something like this. I don't know, but it was close, and it's like, even though it was 4 foot deep, it's like it was 20 foot. Like, I'm pulling, but nothing. It's not showing or anything. It was so weird. So I've put the torch, which I shouldn't have done in hindsight, and it was probably my fault, but I put the torch on main beam. Obviously, the ridge monkeys, they've got...
Oh, they're a silly beam on.
Yeah, they've got... I just wanted to see what was going on, because I couldn't work out what was happening. Anyway, it's coming up through the water. It's coming up, and it's come up on its side, mate, and I'm like, oh my God. It's an absolute breeze block of a fish. It was massive. And I knew it was a half lin of some kind. Massive half lin. Because when they turn and the scales open.
Yeah.
It was there, mate, in the head torch. And it obviously, what's happened now in hindsight is it's seen the head torch.
Bolted.
Boom! Off it's gone again. And cut me off. So at this point, my rod's gone in the bush. Rod's in the bush, stomping up and down the bank.
Yeah.
Why me? And I was fuming, mate.
Craig said that's the only reason he woke up, was because you were pacing up and down behind him.
I was genuinely trying not to cry, because it was a big fish, mate.
Worse when you see the fish.
Well, I don't know, but all I know, it was a big half-lin of some kind. Now, I know there is a few big half-lins in there, but there's one of two it could have possibly been, and one of them is like upper 30, and when I say upper 30, I mean like
39,
a 38 or 39, and then the other one is gutsy, which is like 40.
46.
I think it's done 45, but I think it was... I'm sure the lady told me it come out at like 44 or 45 anyway. Either way, mate, and this didn't make me feel any better. This really, really upset me. Now, this is something I couldn't shake out my mind for like the whole trip. Even though I was still catching them and I had good success a bit later on the trip, I could not shake this out of my head. And I still can't to this day, because it's annoying. It really is annoying. But, it happens. It does, it happens. So, yeah, obviously next morning, sun's come up. You've moved into...
I've made a quick move.
You've made a quick move, haven't you, into the 2 swims down from me.
I've had 2 fast bites.
Very fast, but like, when I say fast, I mean...
It was the first 5 minutes of having the rods out. The first one went within, before I got the second one even ready. And then the second one obviously went in my hand. But, yeah. After all that
in the
happened,
front.
we went to. You were starting walking back to your swim, weren't you?
Yeah, so obviously I've come to you, sorted out a fish for you and that, done the photos, whatever else. And as I'm walking back to my swim, which seems to be like a recurring thing in my carp fishing, I don't know why, but I like to look at my rods as I'm walking back.
Everybody's the same.
I feel like they will. I feel like it's a natural thing to do, isn't it?
I do it, yeah.
So I'm trudging back, and with absolutely no warning whatsoever, the bobbin just bang up against the alarm, like it was going off 100 mile an hour. So obviously I'm straight on the rod, and again, you know, it felt a decent fish, but I have to say, this would never have crossed my mind if I'd have lost it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't feel special, if you like. It just felt a good fish, which, you know, could be anything from sort of mid-20s upwards.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'd have broke my heart too much if I'd have lost this fish, but it's still the same sort of battle. You know, the line that had obviously been settling in the weed overnight, and it's picked up the line. It picked up the weed, obviously, as I've picked up the line, and I'm pulling it through the weed. I'm trying to connect with the fish, basically. Obviously, you've got the fish that's out there that, like, whatever wraps it's going to be sitting at, and you're picking up and you're trying to, like, ping the weed off the line as it goes. And yeah, so I'm playing this fish, and it was pretty straightforward. You know, there was no sort of...
No mega battle.
No, it wasn't really, was it?
Yeah.
You know, it never really actually settled in until it was up on the scales. Apart from the fact that when I saw it, mate, it was just the most beautiful fish I think I've ever laid eyes on.
Lloyd netted it, didn't he? Was it Craig that netted it?
No, I think it was Lloyd, because Lloyd...
He was in the water. I said, is it a big one? And he said, well, probably a low 20.
And I said straight away.
Like, really?
Yeah, no, I called it. I called a big fish straight away because the shoulders... The shoulders come out the water, and then 3 or 4 inches below it was its head.
Yeah.
And it's like, mate, there's no way. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, you know, 20 pounders can have big shoulders, but I don't know, it just...
When he picked it up out of the water, I looked at it, I was like, that's a 30.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
30.
Now, did I think it was going to do a PB? No, I didn't. I didn't think it was going to be another PB.
None of us.
You know, I just thought it was going to be, you know, sort of 33, thereabouts, something like that. But got it on the scales, and yeah, 36 pound 15 ounces. And it was another PB. I was like, unbelievable. It's turned into a red letter session. Like, you haven't broke your PB for 13 years, and then all of a sudden you've done it twice in one session.
It wasn't even 1 session, it was in 12 hours. Less than 12 hours you broke it twice.
Yeah, it was less than 12 hours, yeah. You know, it was unbelievable, really. You know, and to be such a mega fish as well.
Oh,
could not ask for a better fish, can you?
Stunning fish. The best looking fish I've seen in person.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, its top lip let it down a bit, because its top lip was a bit, you know, a bit...
I didn't look at that, I was too busy.
It's almost like it was a cleft lip, almost. It was kind of...
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, the top lip was a bit, you know, but still, nevertheless, the scales and stuff on it were incredible. Fully, you know, massive, fully scaled mirror. There's no, like, you know, bits missing. Fully scaled mirror. Yeah, so obviously now bucket number 2. This time got no shower gel because Bridgie's gone home. So I just had to kind of like wash with water, which didn't feel great.
Kind of deodorant.
The deodorant kind of pulled me through, but you know what it's like as a carp angler, mate. Let's be honest. I'd got one more night ahead of me. I didn't really care. I'd got fresh clothing. I'd had some form of a rinse down with water. So yeah. Then moving on to the next fish I had in the night. It was that night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think I lost 1 or 2 in between that, but
yeah, you got snapped a couple of times, didn't you?
Yeah, £20 line, man. I think it was just in the weed. I feel like there was just snails or something in the weed.
But angling, I had £12 line and didn't lose a single fish for a snap.
Do you know what, mate? I don't know. I can't remember.
You were the only one to snap though. Lloyd snapped.
Yeah, it does happen. It does happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, the following night, you know, I had a £26 common. And then I had another heavily scaled £29 9 ounce mirror. And yeah, that pretty much puts a cap on it, really. I mean,
it was a hell of a session for a bit.
Yeah, it was mega, mate. It was mega. You know, six fish landed, 4 or 5 fish lost, or something like that. But 2 PBs. I'd had 1 fish. Oh no, sorry, I had another low 20 in the night as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd had what, three £20 plus, 2 £30 plus, and 1 just under 20. So
it was a crap. You can't take it away from Trentview. It's an absolute.
Oh, what a place! What a place! And do you know what? Do you know what? Yeah, credit to the people that run it, because it's run in such a good way where everybody gets a chance. There's no sort of like fighting over the swims or like people stitching you up or anything like that. They work it in a way where, in order of who's on the gate, they let in 5 at a time. And these 5 people pretty much get to choose the swim before anybody else is allowed in. And to me, can't ask for much better than that, really.
First serve is
lovely shower. You know, it's a shower, nevertheless. You know, it's not hanging. You know, it's a nice shower, nice toilets, nice butty van. Yeah.
As well. Lovely staff. Everybody's really pleasant. It's just you can't ask for a better place.
No, and the fish are just out of this world, aren't they?
Crappy.
Yeah. So, as far as the session goes, really, that was pretty much it, mate.
You can't wait to go.
No, absolutely not. Well chuffed. And we will definitely be back there in the future, I have no doubt.
Yeah. Right, I appreciate you coming in for this chat and giving us a good old insight to a bit of your angling and your PBs.
Yeah, man. It's been good.
We'll see you again.
Certainly will, mate. Certainly will.